Hello and welcome back to the Frogs of War podcast. I'm Anthony North. That's Russ Hodges. We'll talk all things TCU athletics today as TCU went into Fayetteville and brought home the bacon, taking a cruising victory in the Fayetteville Regional to move ahead into the Super Regionals of the NCAA baseball tournament. We'll get into all of the recap of that and a look ahead at Indiana State and what the Sycamores will bring to Fort Worth this weekend for Super Regional hosted in Lupton Stadium. Before we get into all that, Russ, how you doing?
Feeling good, feeling a little refreshed after vacation over the weekend. I know you were out on vacation as well, so exciting news to come back to. Of course, I'm sure you were watching over the weekend. I was watching at the bar with my brother. The Arizona game, we were watching it that night, and then catching as much as we could over the long weekend. But awesome stuff to see. Excited to talk about it. And I guess before we get into it, just a quick shout out to everybody that has donated to the Indiana Special Olympics. We'll talk about it in a little bit with Indiana State not being able to host this weekend. Super Regional in Fort Worth. It's sold out. Hope to see the stands packed there. But to everyone that's donated, round of applause. That's awesome stuff. I believe over $25,000 in total has been raised for Indiana Special Olympics. So just wanted to give a quick little kudos there to all the good Samaritans out there, everyone who's donated for a great cause.
Yeah, and TCU officially is getting into the support on the donation game as well. Jeremiah Donati, TCU's athletic director, just sent out a tweet as we were preparing to record that the university will be donating $1 from every concession sold this weekend at the Super Regional there at Lupton Stadium to the Indiana Special Olympics. So, doing a lot of good while playing very well. So, a lot of I'm sure that yeah, we'll get into all of that with the Indiana State regional, but I'm sure people out there in Terre Haute are somewhat disappointed to not be hosting the Super Regional, and perfectly understandable, but happy that there is some big good to come of it here with TCU fans, TCU administrators, and people all over across college baseball really throwing their good weight behind a good cause.
Yeah, and just to get into it, TCU going 3-0 over the weekend, and just some context for the significance of what happened over the weekend. First regional for TCU since 2017, first regional championship, and looking to get back to the College World Series, I believe, for the first time since 2017 as well. 19-2 now over the last 21 games. This goes all the way back to May 1st, that last game of the Texas series that TCU was able to win. Really the turning point of the season, and maybe it's the purple uniforms. I've been noticing over the last couple of weeks they're not wearing any of the other uniform combos. They're sticking with the purple tops, and maybe it's just good juju for these boys because I mean this is just ridiculous what's happening right now. I mean, I don't really know how to describe it because I don't think we've seen anything like this from a TCU baseball team over the last 7, 8 years. I mean, I'm trying to look back at some of these TCU teams that made deep runs in the Super Regionals and to the College World Series, and I can't recall a stretch like this that TCU baseball has had in a season in recent years. I mean, again, 19-2, outscoring opponents 44-13 in this regional. Arkansas came in as the number 3 overall seed. They came in as the number 1 seed in the regional, and after winning against Santa Clara in the opening round, Arkansas was 30-4 at home. A team that rarely loses at home got absolutely destroyed by the Frogs. And we knew that coming in, TCU had the little feather in the cap, the 18-6 win at the very, very beginning of the season, but you think, okay, this is a totally different Arkansas team now. This is a much different TCU team. As the Arkansas baseball Twitter put out, this was going to be a dogfight. This was more like a dog pile in that TCU was just dog piling on the Razorbacks and just completely silencing that crowd in Fayetteville, the 10,000 plus that showed up. And Was rooting for Arkansas, hoping that the Hogs would win the regional, but TCU outscoring Arkansas 32-9 in the two games they faced off in the regional, 50-15 over Arkansas in three games for the entire season. So just unbelievable stuff we're seeing from TCU baseball right now. Like you think it can't get any better, and then it just continues to get better. The key wins toward the end of the regular season over Texas State and the series win over Kansas State. You sweep Baylor, and you're starting to feel a lot more confident as a fan. And you go into the Big 12 tournament, you just continue to win ball games, and you're hitting the ball using the full field. The pitching has been so much better than we saw at the early middle part of the season, and you win the Big 12 tournament. You think it can't get any better than that, and you just go out there to Fayetteville and just completely outclass the other teams in this regional. I'm completely blown away. I mean, as a fan, I don't know how much more fun you could be having right now watching TCU baseball, because this is like it's like you're seeing an AAU team go up against a little league team when TCU goes out there. Just these crooked numbers, game after game after game, and for this to be as for as long as this run has been, it's just something that as a fan we have to really cherish what's happening right now. Regardless of where this TCU team ends up, getting to the 40 win mark, which 4 or 5 weeks ago we're thinking, okay, hopefully TCU can get to 30 wins. Maybe if they're lucky, they'll get to 35 wins. But now we're at 40 wins and counting. Some of the individual performances that we've seen from players like Braden Taylor and Trey Richardson, of course, with a record-setting performance we'll talk about. It's just I'm completely blown away. I mean, it's just unbelievable to see what's happening right now, and hoping that the TCU fans bring the juice this weekend and this series can continue into Omaha.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's part of the what's made this run so fun is the unexpected nature of it. This team was left for dead there at the end of April and has gone on just an incredible tear, a dominant performance through the Big 12 tournament, dominant performance through this regional over certainly Arkansas, one of the best teams in the country, without question, had performed at, at that top two, top five level all season. Seemed like a lock to walk themselves right back into Omaha again. I know their fans when the bracket came out were feeling very very confident that they had the easiest path to make that walk into Omaha, and TCU just continues to defy all of the odds to continue this run that it's on. And yeah, the unexpected individual performances too. I mean, this power surge from Trey Richardson out of nowhere, the two grand slams, three home runs, 11 RBI. I mean, I like you say, it's baffling. And it's a thrill. It's just been an absolute thrill to watch this team uh, grow from that moment, those earlier in the season times when this team did not look like a tournament team. I mean, looked like maybe a fringe bubble team that, you flip a coin one way or another and they're sitting on the wrong side of that bubble and play their way all the way up into the 2 seed and into position to go into this regional and to come away with it and hosting. We'll get into that, but man, hosting a super regional, it's an impossibility. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's such an unlikely statement to have made 5 weeks ago that it's it's really remarkable. And yeah, that the fans are just going to be out for it here in Fort Worth this coming weekend, and it's going to be quite a sight to see. Let's go take the clock back a little bit, go back and look at these games as they happen through the weekend. So we had Friday night against Arizona, and we talked about it last week about Arizona being one of the kind of the last teams to make the field. They were one of the last at-large bubble teams after making a run to the Pac-12 title game and losing in that title game. Um, TCU comes out on fire. Braden Taylor with a absolute monster home run in the first inning that the start of a day that continues to show why he's one of the best players in college baseball and why he should be a pretty solid draft pick in the MLB draft at the end of this season. But and for the start of this game, I was in Las Vegas over the weekend. For the start of this game, I was at the sports book at the Aria at the hotel there, and I was there with a bunch of TCU buddies, and we were watching the game, and we all had a little bit of action on the Frogs, and that moment happens so early in the game, and it's an eruption in the sports book. Super fun, and following right after that, out in right field, Austin Davis makes a ridiculous catch there in the second inning to rob a big play, and it was an exciting moment there. Horned Frogs go on to a 12-4 victory, kind of running away with it, away from the Wildcats, and another. It's just an offensive performance, and the pitching came and really shut the door down the stretch, and all of that talk of Arizona certainly had an offense that could have taken advantage of some of these TCU pitching mistakes, these TCU pitching the staff down the stretch, and just wasn't able to. So a thrilling win to come away and enter yourself into that first step into the winners bracket in the regional.
Looking back at last week, I know we talked about the home run power that Arizona had and coming in. The Wildcats have done a lot of damage with the long ball, and Cole Klecker getting the start. Unfortunately, Luis Rodriguez not available to pitch in this postseason, continuing to deal with that shoulder injury. And Kirk Saarloos said that he's going to be shut down for the season, which is it's a blow for sure. It's disappointing. He had been pitching so well at the end of the season. Really young talent, a freshman, so you hate to see that. But Cole Klecker getting the start, and we talked about how when he has struggled, it's been giving up those home runs. Some of the shorter outings that he's had this year, we've seen him go deep into games several times, show really good command, pitches to weak contact, but at times has struggled with leaving balls up in the zone and giving up home runs. And in this game, Arizona hit 3 home runs. All 4 of their runs came off of the long ball. But to give credit where credit's due, that was really the only damage that Arizona was able to do in this game. Luke Savage came in out of the bullpen and had another excellent relief outing. Just continues to get stronger and stronger as the year moves forward. I know he didn't pitch much at the early part of the season with an injury and was kind of inconsistent over the middle part of the year, but has really come on strong and is a huge weapon for the Frogs out of the bullpen, along with Ben Abelt, who we're going to talk about later on, and how lights out he has been. But Luke Savage throws 4 innings out of the bullpen. He strikes out 3 batters. He gives up only 1 run. And like you said, the offense is just continuing to cycle through the order. Guys 1 through 9 are contributing in so many different ways. It's like death by a thousand cuts when you're facing this TCU offense right now, because you have 9 batters who are not easy outs by any stretch. And you have guys, they showed it all weekend long, guys that are willing to use the other side of the field, guys that are willing to settle for singles and doubles, guys that are willing to work deep into counts and draw those walks, reach on a hit by pitch, use their speed to steal bases. TCU was up several runs in some of these games, and they're continuing to swipe bases and put runners in scoring position because they know that whoever's hitting behind them has the ability to come through. And TCU's had so many different guys, Austin Davis and Anthony Silva, guys hitting near the bottom of the order. Curtis Byrne, who's hitting 6th or 7th in the lineup, is you have guys producing 1 through 9, and that's what's so exciting about watching TCU right now. Yes, Braden Taylor had a monster game. He went 4 for 6. He had 6 RBIs. He's had multiple 6 RBI games over the last couple of weeks, but Carson Bowen has 3 hits out of the 2 hole. Trey Richardson has 3 hits out of the 5 hole. Um, it's just really exciting to watch. It's a very professional approach from a lot of these hitters. You don't see the Frogs striking out on 3 pitches very frequently. You don't see guys swinging at a lot of pitches that are way out of the zone. They have consistently good at bats, and they work opposing pitchers. They make teams go into their bullpen early in games, and at this level, the more arms you can make an opposing team spend, the better chance you have to win. And this offense is just firing on all cylinders right now. I mean, you don't need to make any changes to this lineup 1 through 9. I would just continue to roll with the guys that you have in there right now, and see where that takes you in the Super Regional and onward. But a really good start to this tournament, and even though the home run balls were uh, a negative in this game for the Frogs pitching, we knew coming in Arizona had some home run power, but ultimately it didn't matter. And the Frogs hit the ball extremely well. I think they had 17 hits in the game, and the defense backed them up as well. So a really good start to the tournament that Friday.
Yeah, I guess just to mention the Curtis Byrne homer in the eighth inning, that was kind of the ceiling moment, was another just like, oh man, it's 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 just fun to see all these guys now kind of really, and maybe this Arkansas park is kind of a home run hitter's haven, a little bit, but um, throughout the weekend he certainly mashed, and we'll get into it. And actually, yeah, let's just go ahead and move on to what ended up being a Sunday game, because Saturday was a rain delayed and then rained out. So after Arkansas advanced from their first game, they moved on and were ready to take on the Frogs. And I guess the morning game got in where Arizona was able um, to get past there to, or no, it was Santa Clara. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to all of them. Either way, um, set up for TCU to take on Arkansas in that winners bracket matchup, where, as you know, going into these regionals, you win your first 2 games and you are in an extreme advantage driver's seat, and that was going to be the case even more so with the rain delay and postponing this game by a day. It really set up to make the loser of this game 2 in a tough spot, where you got to come back and win basically 3 straight games in a much shorter time period with less rest. So going into this game, it was a massive game to be able to come out of this regional for both squads. And um, let's see, I mean, TCU just, again, the run scored in this game, I think it's almost laughable. Looking back at the box score and the play by play of this, to see what TCU did to this team, uh, I it's hard to put into words. I'm trying to find, but basically TCU owns the day, dominates at the plate. Some of the best pitchers in the country. I mean, we're talking about Hagen Smith, who was first team All SEC, Golden Spikes semifinalist, um, simply considered one of the best baseball players in the country this season, and TCU just touched him up, just crushed him. He pitched 1 inning, 8 earned runs in 1 inning of work for the first team All SEC starting pitcher. Um, yeah, I don't think we need to hear too much more about how much better the SEC is than everywhere else. I think that myth for this season, although there's still plenty of SEC teams playing, and LSU continues to be one of the best teams in the country, and that's very fair. But the way that TCU treated um, the first team All SEC starting pitcher was a sight to behold.
And we've had a lot of fun watching TCU baseball over the last few weeks, but I don't think I've had more fun watching a college baseball game than I did watching this game on Sunday. 20-5, 21 hits in the game, I believe is a season best for TCU. The 20 runs, also a season best, and there's a laundry list of players that we can talk about, and we have to start with Trey Richardson because again, you mentioned at the top of the podcast, Trey Richardson came in and he's been a big run producer all season for TCU. Don't get me wrong. He's been hitting very consistent around the 300 mark. He came in with 2 home runs all season. The man hits 2 grand slams in the first 2 innings of play, and both were hit to right field. And that's one of my favorite things to watch from a hitter at any level, a college level, pro level. One of the telltale signs of a really good hitter is their ability to drive the ball the other way. And to see Trey Richardson come up in multiple spots uh, where he had ducks on the pond and take pitches outside a little bit off the plate and take them the other way with the power was kind of jaw dropping, to be honest. And we may not see a player hit 2 grand slams in a game for a couple more years in a TCU uniform at least. To see 2 grand slams in 2 innings, and then the man follows it up with a third home run later in the game, a 2-run shot, and then an RBI single up the middle. I mean, it was just unbelievable to see 11 RBIs in the game for Trey Richardson that ties a record set back in 2019, ironically by another Baylor player. I can't remember what his name was, but uh, Trey Richardson, the former Baylor transfer, finishing 5 for 6 in this game, overshadowing the fact that Braden Taylor went 4 for 6 again with a home run and 4 RBIs. And Braden Taylor hit number 23 in this game, and that ties a TCU single season record. And we're not even talking about Braden Taylor's game because of what Trey Richardson did. Elijah Nunez hitting leadoff goes 4 for 5. Carson Bowen again in the 2 hole, he goes 3 for 4. Those guys right now, their ability to set the table for Taylor, Fontenelle, and Richardson hitting 3, 4, 5, it's like automatic. There's one or two guys on base whenever those hitters in the heart of the order are coming up, and TCU more often than not is going to be driving those guys in because they've been doing it for basically the entire season, not just by hitting the ball into the outfield, but they'll take the RBI groundouts. They'll take the sacrifice flies. They know how to put the ball in play and bring runners home. So just an incredible performance by this TCU offense. To me, the best offensive outing of the entire season against a pitcher, as you said, came in with a sub-3 ERA, one of the best pitchers in the country, likely to be a high draft pick, in the next year or so, and was absolutely shelled in the first inning. And Arkansas had to go to the bullpen, and there was a lot riding on this game. I mean, with the weather postponement, the team that lost this game had to play again that night and then come back and play 2 more games the following day. So that's 4 9-inning baseball games in a span of under 48 hours. That's a lot of arms being used. That's a lot of energy being spent, and fatigue, I have to feel, becomes a factor when you lose that game. And Arkansas, to their credit, they were able to bounce back with a win against Santa Clara to get back into the mix. But at the end, TCU was just overwhelming. And to give credit where credit's due as well, because we've been talking about all of these guys at the plate who had great performances. Sam Stottenborough just continues to get stronger and stronger as well. He threw 6 innings in this game. He struck out 5. He's 4-0 now on the season. I think all 4 of those wins may be as a starter, or at least 3 of them. 6 innings was his longest outing of the season, and he's had, I believe, 3 or 4 consecutive outings where he's gone 5 innings plus. And for a team that's, again, without one of its starting pitchers, a team that just hasn't really gotten it from Cam Brown this year, for him and Cole Klecker to continue to pitch the way they have, um, it's huge for TCU because they're not having to expend so many arms out of the bullpen. And Luke Savage has been dynamite. Ben Abelt has been dynamite as well. Garrett Wright, of course, but um, Sam Stottenborough deserves a ton of credit. Coming in as a graduate transfer, a lot of experience, was primarily used as a reliever early on. And about a month ago on the podcast, we were talking about who was going to take advantage of the opportunity to step up and come through for TCU at a point in the season where the Frogs were, floating on a life raft. And I think Sam Stottenborough has been one of those guys. He's been much sharper with his command. He didn't walk a single batter in this game, which was a big issue for him midway through the season. His command was kind of all over the place with walks and hit batters, but his start was huge in this game, and it allowed TCU to preserve some of its arms, whereas Arkansas was having to send out pitcher after pitcher just trying to fight back into this regional and still have a chance. So many I'm sure there are more positives that I'm not even talking about. There's so much to like about this game, but just an unbelievable performance by TCU, and it set the stage for the game on Monday.
Yeah, stellar performance from Stottenborough, and it did allow. Yeah, you didn't have to burn Garrett Wright in these games. Mason Speaker goes out and throws 2 innings to close it out at the end with Hunter Hodges there in the middle pitching an inning on just 15 pitches. So yeah, pitching staff handled business there. It was again the home run ball that touched them up. All of the runs, the 5 runs that they surrendered were from the home run for Arkansas, but um, there was sufficient cushion when your offense is putting up a 20 spot. I think it's okay to give up a couple home runs as you're trying to work through the final outs of a game. So, um, it really did that performance from the pitching staff and from the offense to force Arkansas to burn so many of its arms so quickly, and force them into all of those extra games rolls right into Monday as TCU once again heads for a cruising win, a simple, straightforward 12-4 win to walk away with the regional, and really kind of felt extra confident about it. I mean, there was excitement and there was a celebration, but there was no giant frog pile on the mound. There was no, it was very. You've said it, like, very businesslike. Like these guys know that they have more business to handle, and they certainly went into Fayetteville and handled the business there. To get into the game from Monday, it was Cam Brown to get the start, and he kind of did Cam Brown things, which is, you got the best of times and the worst of times there. So he starts it off in a little bit of trouble early in this game. I think loaded the bases and ends up only giving up a single run off of a sac fly, and to kind of wiggle himself out of that situation was really massive. And even though the Frogs didn't score there in the first inning to bounce right back, he bounced right back on the mound as he pitched the next 3 frames without giving up any runs, before kind of allowing the home run ball and allowing the runs that ended up pulling him out of the game. But it was very encouraging to see him escape that moment and move forward and able to chew up some innings there early in the game to allow the offense to catch up and turn the ball over to Ben Abelt, who was really just phenomenal in relief in this game. 4.2 innings pitched, 4 strikeouts, just a single hit allowed, and I think he was one that a few months ago we had some concerns. He he gave up. I'm trying to remember which game it was, but there was one tough game where he came in and gave up the go ahead runs to give TCU a loss, and we were feeling pretty down about it. And he ended up coming back in his next outing and performed just fine. And he has now become a staple of this bullpen as a true freshman to come out and really hold things down for the Frogs. I mean, to only use two pitchers in this game in a regional clinching game, really impressive stuff. In particular, out of Ben Abelt, but shout out to Cam Brown for he did his thing there in that first inning and did give up some runs later on, but really was able to take it and turn it around there after some struggles in that first inning.
Yeah, Benabelt right now is undoubtedly the best left-handed pitcher on the team. And just to give some context as to how absurd he's been over the last, and this also, like TCU, going back to May 1st when the season really turned around. 19-2 over the last 21 games. Benabelt since May 1st has thrown 18 and one-third innings, struck out 23 batters, given up only 5 walks, and has not allowed a single run over that 18 and one-third inning stretch. And his ERA, which at one point was well over 5, close to 6, is now down into the upper 3 range. So he's been an absolute weapon out of the bullpen. And Cam Brown, it was a very Cam Brown start, like you said. He only gave up 2 hits, and the contact really hasn't been the issue for him, as we know. It's been the command, and he gave up only 2 hits in 4 1/3, but he walked 4 and he hit 2 more batters. So those are just things where, in a game like this, you really don't want to give free passes and give a team as dangerous as Arkansas extra opportunities to potentially build a lead. But to credit the TCU defense, the Frogs turned a key double play late in this game. We're making sharp plays in the field all weekend long, continuing the theme that I brought up last weekend at the Big 12 tournament. In these kinds of games, you can't be giving teams extra opportunities in the field either. And TCU made tremendous plays on the infield, in the outfield. You mentioned Austin Davis was making great plays. Braden Taylor had another outstanding weekend in the field. Anthony Silva was sharp as usual. And Cole Fontenelle made a couple of nice picks at first base to dig some balls out of the dirt. So
Eli Nunez out in center field too made some amazing plays.
the defense has been on point, and a player that I want to shout out in this game for his offense was Austin Davis, because this game, the score might be a little deceiving. It was 12-4, but this game was very competitive for about 6 innings. Arkansas actually held a 4-2 lead. TCU got one back in the 5th inning. Trey Richardson hit a RBI ground out to the right side. TCU got, I think, 2 runners on with nobody out. They only got 1 run, but it's a 4-3 game going into the bottom of the 6th inning. Austin Davis comes up. He's in a 2-strike count. He's getting nothing but low sliders. And Arkansas has a pitcher out who I believe had an ERA over 7, not one of their best pitchers. And you just think, okay, if this guy throws him one more slider that hangs over the low part of the plate, Austin Davis is going to put a barrel on the ball and it's going to go far. I don't remember if it was a 1-2 count or a 2-2 count. Pitcher throws him a low slider. It doesn't get in the dirt. It hangs over the plate, crushes it over the TCU bullpen. All the guys in the bullpen going crazy. A 2-run homer that gave TCU the lead, 5-4, and then it was just like an avalanche after that. Curtis Byrne hits 2 home runs over the last few innings, both to right center field. He finishes 4 for 5 in the game. Austin Davis, who also had a 2-run single earlier in the game, he finished with 4 RBIs. Trey Richardson, again, another home run. I think he took a 97 mile an hour fastball up in the zone and carry it over the center field wall. He swung so hard that he was cramping up in the dugout. I think they showed it on the broadcast, his oblique. He had to lay down on the bench in the TCU dugout because he was cramping up after that swing. But 10 unanswered runs for TCU after being down 4-2 in this game. So it was a much more competitive game than the previous two, but once this offense got going and Arkansas had to get some of its lesser arms into the game, Hagen Smith, he only threw 1 inning in the first game, so he was fresh and he was able to come out and uh, pitch really well for Arkansas in this game. Was a big reason why the Razorbacks were in the game for as long as they were. Not sure how many pitches he ultimately threw for the tournament. It might have been in the 120s or 130s, but um, TCU's offense just took over the last few innings, and Belt shut the door. A double play, I think, turned in the eighth inning that helped TCU get out of the frame, and the home faithful were very quiet when this game was over, and TCU came out. It was a much different reaction from the Indiana State players, who I think they dogpiled when they won their regional, and you saw the TCU guys coming out, and there was some excitement for sure, but they were shaking hands, and they know that there's still more to come. This team looks like it is very determined now to make the most of this renewed opportunity, to continue what's been a magical run. So really excited to see what happens at the Super Regional this weekend. And if TCU can put up 32 runs in 2 games against the number 3 overall seed in the tournament, TCU is capable of doing the same thing to any other team. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case every time, but we're seeing TCU, you can argue right now, is playing better baseball than any team in college baseball in the tournament right now. So super excited for the weekend and just hoping to see this team continue to just continue this magical run into Fort Worth this weekend and hopefully into Omaha for the College World Series.
Yeah, that's a nice transition, but I have two other shout outs from this last game against Arkansas. So I think my favorite thing about the Austin Davis day is that, he's hitting from the 9 spot and he's having this excellent day with his RBI and his homer. And uh, they they intentionally walk the 9-hole hitter in this game to get to Elijah Nunez at the top of the order. That's the kind of thing you don't see, and just continues to speak to uh, the firepower that this lineup shows, literally from top to bottom. That Arkansas was so afraid of the heat that Austin Davis was emanating, that they would just give him the free pass there. The other shout out is to Carson Bowen, who hit 2 doubles, but they both were like maybe a foot from being home runs. First one hits off the yellow stripe at the top of the fence, and the other hits into the fence, and we're both just really crushed. And off the bat, I thought both were going to end up being gone, but he hits 2 doubles, scores 2 runs. Another big day at the plate for him at the catcher spot. All
And
right.
Cole Fontenelle, I'm going to give Cole
Yeah.
Fontenelle a quick shout out too,
Oh,
because
yeah.
he had 3 RBIs in this game, and I talked about players using the other side of the field, and Cole Fontenelle is a great example of that because he's a switch hitter, and he comes up midway through the game from the right side. He hits more from the left side, but he comes up from the right, and this might have been a 2-strike count as well. Hits a hard ground ball through the second base side for an RBI single, and then later in the game comes in from the left side with 2 runners on and pokes one the other way. It lands maybe 3 feet inside of the left field line, and it winds up being a 2-run double. So Cole Fontenelle with 2 big hits, 3 RBIs that come from just hitting the ball into the right spot. There's a gap on the second base side. Take the ball the other way. You have an opportunity to poke one in the left field, bring a couple runs home. Just really good hitting from him in a key spot where I think with that 2-run double, they intentionally walked Braden Taylor, and he stole second base, so that put runners at second and third for him, and just had a really nice piece of hitting. So giving a shout out to him too.
Yeah, for sure. That was a good call there, because Those are big important runs to add on, and he did an excellent job there to help push that game over the finish line. So let's move on to the Super Regional. TCU will be taking on the Indiana State Sycamores, who emerged from the regional they hosted in Terre Haute with a sweep through that regional as well. 3-0, taking down Wright State and then beating the 2 seed Iowa twice to move on into the Super Regional. They had to come from behind in all three of those games. So there were some struggles early, allowing some early runs that maybe is not typical of them, but their offense stuck with it and were able to come up with some incredible plays in the outfield. I think there were two robbed home runs in their run through the regional, and so I think they proved a lot of people wrong. I'm sure much of the national discussion of Indiana State was, why is this team hosting? This is an RPI tricker. They don't really deserve to be here. They haven't beat any good teams and blah blah blah. And they just went out and performed, and they took down. Particularly, I mean, Wright State was a good team that had a lot of buzz about it, but really that Iowa team had all the metrics of a team to fear a run to Omaha. So big kudos to the Sycamores to emerge from their regional to reach the Super Regionals, where being the number 1 seed in the regional and as the 1 seed from the Fayetteville Regional did not advance, typical situation would be they would be hosting a Super Regional there in Terre Haute again this weekend. Which, however, the Indiana State administration, as we discussed earlier, has declined that request or that opportunity, and had apparently had done so already before the results were known. They went into this knowing this, and really a lot of times this might have been a situation where the NCAA could have forced their hand into this. Sometimes in the past, the leadership of the NCAA has pushed super regionals into locations with bigger stadiums, bigger cities, more hotel presence, a better ability to support all of the television apparatus that has to come into town, all of the media. So that's happened in the past, but I don't. This kind of got preempted on that, in that Indiana State had already turned down this opportunity. And hearing the administration talk and seeing their statement, I think they came to a pretty clear and definitive conclusion on this, that frankly that the city couldn't handle it, the university couldn't handle it, and that it was going to be too taxing on all of the resources, personnel, facilities, and all of that. They had already hosted the Missouri Valley Conference tournament 2 weeks prior, and then obviously this last week hosted the regional, and to have events of this magnitude 3 weeks in a row seemed the feedback was that that's not feasible from a personnel perspective. But on top of that, certainly is the Indiana Special Olympics event that they host there every year, and it's a long-term commitment. This is the 51st year that they've been hosting this there at Indiana State University. So that was a commitment they were not going to break for this, possibility of a super regional coming to town. So it's all understandable. It's unfortunate. I think that it's the kind of thing that in the future, perhaps they'll plan better for. Perhaps they'll have facilities more ready to handle such a situation. But for this year, it is what it is. And that means that the Super Regional is coming to Lupton Stadium on the campus of TCU here in Fort Worth, Texas. And Russ, how excited are you that TCU's hosting, and how excited should the Horned Frogs be going into this super regional against Indiana State?
I'm super excited, and obviously the TCU faithful are excited as well. It's sold out. There might be some general admission seating still available, but it's going to be a packed house, and this is something that hasn't happened for this program in several years. As we said before, TCU first appearance in a super regional since 2017. So you know that the Frog faithful are going to be juiced up for this one, and it is super unfortunate that Indiana State can't host because of course they've earned that opportunity as the regional champion. And I know there was some riffraff on social media, fans that were upset that Indiana State was getting hosed, and maybe they're going to have more fans in their corner because of that. And Indiana State being a smaller school will be more of the Cinderella pick, I think, anyway, going up against a team in TCU that in a major conference that has been pretty strong over the last several years. But it's going to be a great series. I'm excited for it, and just hoping to see TCU continue this amazing run that the team has been on over the last 4 to 5 weeks. And I believe the first game is going to be Friday at 4 o'clock, and then Saturday at 5, I believe, are the start times. So tailgate crowds, I'm sure, are going to be crazy in Fort Worth this weekend. Hope to see a lot of TCU fans there. If I was in town, I would love to go, but I'm going to be stuck streaming on ESPN Plus and watching from home and cheering on the Frogs. So I think it's going to be a great series. This is a really talented Indiana State team. I believe 45 wins on the season for the Sycamores. So um, I think this team was deserving of a top 16 overall seed, and they're going to be coming in looking to prove themselves to the country in college baseball that they are legit and they were deserving of that seed. And um, it's not a team that TCU can take for granted by any stretch. So I think this team is going to be ready to go, and I'm just really excited to see the series and how it pans out this weekend.
Yeah, that chip on the shoulder can carry a lot of weight too. I mean, even if they won't publicly say that they feel like it's a slight, they can use it to their advantage in that way of, hey, people don't believe in us. They think, we're nothing but Larry Bird from, whatever, 100 years ago. Um and they're going to come out with every intention to prove that they belong. And you know, I will say, taking a look at this team, I think they've already proven that they belong. I mean, what they've done this season, this is a very good baseball team. I think there's a lot of things that they do extremely well and better than most teams in the country. I think their pitching staff is going to be really scary for TCU. Now, we probably said the same thing about Arkansas and completely dismantled that pitching staff for Arkansas. But playing in Lupton is a different place, and it's baseball. Weird things happen, and I think that this Indiana State pitching staff features three really strong starters. So I mean, I think that they have the ability to come out here, and if this does go to 3 games, they have three guys who, in different ways, are really at the top of their game. I mean, as a unit, not just the starting staff, but as a unit, they are fourth nationally in ERA, the fourth best ERA in the country, third best WHIP. They strike out a ton of batters and don't walk, folks. They're the 14th in strikeout to walk ratio. They have 7 shutouts on the season. So, um, do not take this pitching staff lightly. I mean, we talked about how strong the TCU bats are, and what they will be able to bring, and have performed over the last 5 weeks. But do not sleep on the stuff that is coming from the arms from the Sycamores for sure. I would I would probably think that Connor Fenlong is the Friday starter. He's kind of I don't know, their main guy. Let's see, I'm trying to pull up some stats here. Uh, yeah, I mean he's the guy who can go the distance. He eats the most innings and prevents the most runs generally. They've got a guy Lane Miller's another starter who hasn't lost a game all season in 11 starts, and then they've got their third starter whose last name I'm probably going to mispronounce, but it's Matt Jakic. He's the strikeout guy. He's 97 strikeouts on the season, only 14 walks, which is a top 10 rate in the country. Just phenomenal stuff from their starting pitching, and I think their defense as well. They do not give up errors. Top three. Let's see, yeah, third best in the country at fielding percentage. So they're not giving you free bases. They're not giving you much to hit. So I think it will be interesting. I think there's probably going to be some pushback that those are empty stats against garbage teams, but I just don't know that that's the case. I mean, this Indiana State team ended up with an RPI super high, like ninth in the country. They ended up their last whatever. The conference season is not elite competition, but to put up this kind of statistical performance from an entire pitching staff, it's not a fluke, and they are not going to be afraid to come right at the Horned Frog hitters in my estimation.
Yeah, I think anytime a team and individuals can put together a body of work that spans, 55, 60 games plus in a season, you have to respect that body of work regardless of the competition that Indiana State's facing. So I think coming in, the theme really is going to be, can TCU get these starters out of the game early and force the Sycamores to go to their bullpen where there may be some lesser pitchers or younger arms that haven't really seen a lot of work this year. And, I'm trying to think of just things because TCU has played such unbelievable baseball over the last 21 games that are there any tweaks or things of that nature that TCU needs to make? Because offensively, I really can't think of anything. I think the lineup is pretty much solidified. I know Logan Maxwell and Luke Boyers have kind of gone back and forth a little bit in that left field, 7, 8, 9 hole in the lineup. I personally like Logan Maxwell there a little bit more. He's been hitting for contact better this year. He laid down a couple of nice sacrifice bunts over the weekend, so I think he's kind of earned that spot. I know Boyers is a veteran player, but he just hasn't really hit the ball very well this year. So um, I think for the pitching staff, I'd really like to see a strong start from Cole Klecker. I feel like his last few outings have been pretty short, and the home runs, as we said earlier in the podcast, have been a bit of an issue for him. So he's shown that he's capable of going 6, 7 innings strong. Would really like to see that, assuming he's the Friday starter, which um, with Rodriguez out, I'm guessing that's probably the case. And then Sam Staunborough will probably pitch on Saturday, and I'd like to see him just continue to do what he's doing. He's going deeper and deeper into games. I think he threw 96 or 98 pitches in his 6 inning outing over the weekend. So he's fully stretched out, and that's really good to see. But I'd like to see Cole Klecker bounce back and have a good outing because we know that he's capable of going 7 strong and quieting those Indiana State bats. So hoping to see big things from him. And I think the way that this series is structured, it's best of three, and you're only going to play a maximum of 3 games. So I guess it's not a huge harm if you have to go to Luke Savage or Benabelt or uh, Garrett Wright earlier than you need to because you're not going to be playing as many games as you would be in a regional where you might have to play 4 or 5 games. So it's going to be all hands on deck, and we'll see if this offense can continue to do what it's been doing. And again, I don't think there are going to be many changes to the lineup. We have guys 1 through 9. Austin Davis, I think, has an RBI in each of his last 9 games or 10 games. So everybody's stepping up, and I'm excited to see what goes down this weekend.
Yeah, the one thing that concerns me about the Indiana State batting profile against the TCU pitchers is something that what they do well is something that TCU has struggled with. We've talked about Klecker and Cam Brown's being susceptible to the home run. Indiana State is a heavy hitting team. They do a lot of their damage via the home run, via the extra base hit. A lot of doubles on this team. But the other thing that they do better than almost anyone in the country is receive hit by pitches, which we saw Cam Brown really struggle with in that game against Arkansas. Put a couple batters on in that one that set him up into just a really dangerous situation where you allow a lot of free base runners in that way where clearly over this body of work, Indiana State has shown that I think at some point that is a little bit of a skill. It is something that they work to do. It is a way to get on base, to receive hit by pitches, to just stand in there and kind of allow that pitch to get you. Um, it it can be a bit of a skill, and so if they get that one or two runners on base for free, and then uh, let one rip into the general admission seats, it sets you up into a bad spot. So I'm hoping that TCU is able to avoid those just kind of those free passes with the plunks, taking it the hard way um, for those batters. And that's like you said, there's not a whole lot of nits to pick with the Horned Frogs over the last 5-6 weeks. I think it's maybe there's a little bit of hold your breath and hope that this carriage to Omaha doesn't turn into a pumpkin at some point. But for now, TCU is just playing some of the best baseball in the country, some of the best baseball we've ever seen a TCU squad put on display. And there's not much to quibble with. I think it's all we can do at this point is kind of be excited to see how it all plays out this weekend. Um, like you said, get started Friday, 4 p.m. here, Central Local Time. And so, if you have to, anybody's out there needs to escape work early to get out, you got to take a lunch meeting with an important client, and his name's Super Frog. Um, I think that's probably all I have on baseball, and we've gone about an hour. We've got a little bit of other news, but Russ, anything else to wrap up this excellent conversation here about the regional recap and our super regional preview?
You know what? I think we did a pretty good job of covering everything, and now I guess I'll just go ahead and throw my unsurprising prediction out there. I will take the TCU Horned Frogs to win this Super Regional and make it back to the College World Series for the first time in 6 years, just so I can have an excuse to maybe take off a day of work next week and go out and enjoy it. And have never been to Omaha for a College World Series game and would love to do that at some point within the next few years. So I will take TCU and I will take it in 2 games. I think TCU will come out. We'll get a good start from Cole Klecker. We'll get more great offense from the Frogs like we've seen over these last few weeks, and I think these boys are going to keep the season going.
I love it. I think it might take three. I think it might take three, but I'll go with the Frogs as well. Speaking of Omaha, just to spin it forward a little bit, should the Frogs advance, TCU's on the side of the bracket that contains in they would be matched up with the winner of the Oregon Oral Roberts Super Regional, which is a super interesting both of those teams. I mean, Oral Roberts, a 4 seed, comes out of the Stillwater Regional. Yeah, the poor Cowboys did not have a good time hosting last weekend out there after falling in the conference championship to the Frogs. And then also on TCU's side of the bracket would be the winner of the Florida South Carolina Super Regional, and Duke Virginia. So a lot of good teams there. I think Florida is quite clearly the best of this side of the bracket. Um, but you are on the opposite side of the bracket from Wake Forest and LSU and Tennessee, Stanford, Texas. So, I think Florida stands out as a really scary team, but not looking too far ahead, not trying to peak. But I think things set up for a very interesting Omaha if TCU were to take two this weekend from Indiana State, headed into the College World Series. All right, enough of that. Baseball, put it away for just a second. We'll close with one piece of the TCU news where we were on the pod last week counting down the minutes to the end of the deadline for the NBA draft announcements. Found out the following day that officially Damian Baugh has remained in the NBA draft and will forego any remaining eligibility and will not be returning to the Horned Frogs. However, Emmanuel Miller has withdrawn from the NBA draft and will return to the Horned Frogs for next season, and returning to a TCU squad that, as we talked about, will have a lot of pieces to be in position to have a very successful season in 2023-24.
Yeah, super excited about this. I know we were kind of joking on the podcast because I think we stopped maybe around 11 o'clock last week and we were refreshing Twitter and just waiting for the news to drop, and all of this information was dropping about some of the other players. I think Texas had a player who was coming back, and the TCU guys were the only guys that weren't being talked about. And we're like, okay, what's going on here? Maybe we might get a surprise 11:59 tweet or something, but no, it took until I think 6 a.m. the next morning. Some tweets came out that Emmanuel Miller is going to come back and Damian Baugh is going to stay in the draft. So best of luck to Damian Baugh as he continues to pursue his professional career. And for Emmanuel Miller, I think this is a player that has been a huge contributor for TCU over the last couple of seasons, averaged over 12 points and 6 rebounds per game this past year. Really has some more room to grow, though. I think he improved significantly as a three-point shooter this past year. He was a much better free throw shooter. But I think this year he really has an opportunity now where he's not playing with Mike Miles Jr., he's not playing with Eddie Lampkin, he's not playing with Damian Baugh. And TCU's going to have some talented players coming in like Jameer Nelson and Avery Anderson and others, but he has an opportunity now to be a featured guy for the first time since he was at Texas A&M, where he averaged, I believe, 16 and 8 for the Aggies before he transferred in to TCU. So he's going to have a chance to be a featured guy, and it's a huge boost for a team that I haven't checked the latest portal recruiting rankings, but I know TCU was number 10 in the country by 247, and that was before they brought in Ernest Uday from Kansas, who is going to be a candidate to take over that starting center position from Eddie Lampkin. So I kind of envision a starting lineup that looks a little bit like this. You have Avery Anderson taking over as your starting point guard, experienced player from Oklahoma State. You have Jameer Nelson coming in, a 20-point per game scorer from Delaware. Chuck O'Bannon is coming back for his 7th collegiate season, so a guy who can stretch the floor a little bit and play some defense, a lot of experience, could be your starting 3. Emmanuel Miller comes back at the 4, and then you have either Ernest Uday or Isam Mustafa, the double-double transfer from Coastal Carolina. And then you have a bench that's just loaded with talent. I mean, you have Jacoby Coles, who realistically could be a starter at the 3 because of how well he could score. You have Micah Peavy, who plays great defense. You have Trey Tennyson coming in from Corpus Christi, who's a really good shooter. Mustafa, if he's coming off the bench, that's a 12-point, 10-rebound per game guy coming off the bench. Xavier Cork is going to be a senior this coming year. So there's so much to like about this TCU team, not to mention Jace Posey and Isaiah Manning, the two incoming freshmen. So I think the biggest challenge will just be you have, I think, five transfers coming in. So it's two freshmen and five transfers with some returning players. They're going to need some time to gel. I think it's going to be really important over the remainder of this off season and over that non-conference part of the schedule to get the rotation figured out, see where guys fit best, and hopefully have a cohesive unit entering Big 12 play. And we were really optimistic about this team coming into the 2022 season with Miles and Baugh and everybody coming back. And even though we've had players enter the portal, Miles is going to the NBA, Damian Baugh going to the NBA. I don't see a reason why this team couldn't win over 20 games and make it to the second round of the tournament again, or maybe even go deeper than that if this group of transfers and these players can gel together quickly and find immediate success. So I'm really excited. And for Miller, I think he's making the right decision. I think he has a chance again to come back and be more of a focal point of the offense as opposed to being more of a secondary option. And it'll be really good, I think, for his development and for the team as a whole.
Yes, and as the 2022-2023 athletic calendar or academic calendar athletic seasons come to a close here with baseball being the last, perhaps the best athletic calendar of all time for TCU athletics. The college football playoff semifinal win, national championship game run, a win in the NCAA tournament, and here a super regional run, and perhaps more. It's an incredible time to be a Horned Frog fan, and that's not even to mention all the other amazing things that are happening around TCU, all of the tennis and rifle and equestrian and on and on and on and on, and soccer and volleyball and beach volleyball. And so just always really proud to be a Horned Frog, and hope all of you out there are Horned Frog fans, obviously listening to this, and it's just a looking forward to what's to come in the 23-24 season. I think it'll be another exciting one. And with that, we'll close here tonight. And thank you all for listening and following us on the website at frogsofwar.com and on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere. So have a good day. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.